Well, I mean,
statistically, you're going to see more stuff and be like, "Ooh."
Bees themselves tend to be more hardy though.
Well, I mean, but that gets into like other important things. Like, I personally would rather have maybe hardier bees than super hygienic bees.
But you can't.
I don't know.
You got to select for a trait.
What is your
right?
business plan for your apiary?
Yeah.
That's
So we're selecting for. Remember, you can only pick. Like, you can't pick a redheaded fellow that's built like Arnold Schwarzenegger that only eats salad. You got to pick one, right? Either he's gonna look like Arnold and consume a bunch of chicken and turkey, or he's gonna look like he runs marathons and he only eats lettuce, or you get what I'm saying here. Is you have to pick a trait. So we are picking based on this single trait, because once we focus in on this trait, the other traits can come along with. The current trait problem across all the genetics is nobody's bred this better bee to fight Varroa. And what good is it if we continue? I mean, in 30 years, nobody's done it. If we don't start doing it 30 years from now, guess what pickle we're still going to be in? The same one. And the average age...
We'll just throw more chemicals at it.
Yeah, sure, just throw more chemicals at it. Yeah, what could go wrong?
Can you talk real quick about that test that you're doing?
Yeah, so UBO is unhealthy brood odor. Let me fill you in on this.
What's the sign up for?
I'm sorry?
What's the sign up for? They got a...
There's a waiting list.
Yeah, the waiting list sign up for.
So Kara Wagner and Phoebe Snyder have been with UNC Greensboro's biology department, and Phoebe is a very good friend of mine. So they identified. I'm gonna simplify this down. I hope they don't shoot me. Imagine a perfume. Okay, we all know ladies' perfume. It has all these different smells, right? Well, they identified a smell that you can spray on late stage cat brood, and the bees say, "Uh-oh, the larvae underneath these cappings have Varroa in them." And certain hives go, "We want that out of here." So they go in and they uncap, and then they pull out the larvae, and we come back 2 hours later and we can test and see there's a score. And so we score each hive based on the Varroa sensitive hygienics, meaning we're looking for a hive that cleans out Varroa on their own.
So it's similar to the
Harbo assay.
It's similar to the
Frost kill and
the frost kill circle thing.
Okay, so
but it's easier to do because it's a spray versus.
So all right, so the current test, there's two tests. There's a Harbo assay. Anybody can do it. You can be a biologist. It's very simple. It takes about an hour the first time, and after you get the hang of it, it takes about 20 minutes. Get you a pair of reader glasses that are real strong, like the 3X, or a pair of magnifying glasses like your dentist wears. And you go in and you want to see after purple-eyed stage larva, and you get a pair of tweezers and you uncap and you pull out about 100 total cells. And you can get online and there's a scoring rate, and if it scores well, then you come back 2 weeks later, and if it continues to score well, now we know who we want to breed from next spring. Okay, that's the Harbo assay, and I just simplified that too, but that's the long and short. Anybody can sit down and count Varroa, and you're looking for juvenile Varroa, so they're even smaller than the standard size adults, and you're looking for it after the purple-eyed stage, because the life cycle of the Varroa mites have had a chance to fully develop. So she's laid all the Varroa she's going to have. The industry standard, the second one, has been a freeze brood assay. An assay is simply a test, or I'm trying to think, an assay, an assessment maybe. So freeze brood is you take a frame of brood and you lay it down flat, and you take a piece of PVC and you jam it into the brood. You dump liquid nitrogen on it and you give it about 20 minutes. Of course, liquid nitrogen boils off because the boil point for liquid nitrogen is like 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So it vapors off, and then we put it back in the hive, and then we come back 24 hours later. So there's a lot of labor for the commercial guys. And then we pull it out and we see, okay, the hive came in and they pulled out the frozen brood. This does test how hygienic they are, but not in relation to Varroa. That's a fail point. You're doing the wrong test for the wrong application. I'm sorry, the result you're counting does test for hygienics, but not specific to Varroa. And then they're claiming, oh, we have VSHBs. I'm going to give you an example of VSH breeders. I'm not downplaying anybody, I'm just going to let you know because there's a lot of shadiness in the bee business. I'm all about transparency, and I'm proud that I'm going to stand on this platform. I'm going to catch a lot of flack for it, okay? Has everybody seen the example of purple honey last year? Does everybody know what red and purple food dye makes? You will see more purple honey produced through that belt in North Carolina this year than all the honey produced in North Carolina this year. Why? Sales. I know a guy down in Southern Pines had a call from Australia, wants four barrels.
So doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. It just simply doesn't exist.
We had purple honey in 2017 in Granville County. We haven't seen it since.
It's rare. It's rare. I mean, it's real rare. But you will see popping up at farm stands because people want it and people will buy it, right? They will sell you anything. So the same, yes, ma'am.
What makes purple honey?
We don't know.
It's magic.
We have no idea. There's a lot of speculation as to what forage that they're on or what enzymes, but nobody knows.
So Jonathan Merrill had his tested, and it looked just like regular wildflower because Texas A&M at that time was still doing their stuff. I had someone stop at the Durham Farmers Market and I gave him a little tiny bottle. I was selling 2-ounce bottles at that point for $10 because it was selling so fast, I just upped the price, right? And a guy took it to his metals lab and saw nothing abnormal in it. And so everyone has their theories, and I don't think any of them are really very correct.
I want to give you an example. I know someone who, she received are any of you ladies familiar with an Hermes bag or a Hermes? I'm not sure. They're investments mostly. They go for between $20,000 to $100,000 bag for a purse. I guess to keep all your money in. I don't have that problem. Someone called and said, I represent a such and such, and this person would like purple honey for their party. Can you find it? And she said, perhaps, I can probably find a pint. I know somebody. And, she said, if you would do that, I'll be giving you a wholesale rate on a Hermes bag, about 80% off. Because these people they just want to flaunt it. There will be people this year, red and blue food dyeing honey. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
It doesn't taste any different. I will bring some. I still have some.
So with that, people will sell you a test. They will sell you a queen. They will claim VSH. So I've had people ask me, "Are you VSH?" I say, "No. We introduce a lot of genetic diversity. I'm trying to breed a better bee. This is how I'm doing it. If you'd like to repeat it, please knock on 100 doors. We need other people to knock on 100 doors and find an island and breed a better bee." But realistically, due to varroa mites in the last 30 years, it is estimated that there's less than 400 different genetic lines on the North American continent. We don't know that for sure.
Were you at conference last year when that genetics person did their presentation after looking at all that?
I was.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was it Corey Stevens?
All the alleles being gone.
No, who was that? That might have been that November conference we had, but they had done genetics and they had it all linked out to like what came over on the ships and how it spread. It was pretty fascinating.
See, I'm a bee nerd. I would love that.
I'll try to figure out who that was. I think there's pictures in my phone somewhere.
Well, let's take this back from a commercial scale back down to many of the new folks in the room. So the question is, how can you expand your operation from say 2 to 10? Get together with one another. Say, I'm doing this. We're going to try and put this together at Christina's house or whoever's place. You would be amazed. Excuse me. You would be amazed when you increase. It's called a drone flooded area or a drone congregation area. you have so many drones in an area that virgin queens have no choice but to get mated well. Most people, there's a lot of people out there say, we're going to requeen every year. The reason you requeen every year is young queens have vigor. It's questioned about how does a queen know when to come back from her mating flight. She feels full of semen, in this case is what's estimated. But Dr. Tarpey at NC State documented a queen with 71 different specimens last year.
Yeah.
Now think about, that queen is not going to run out of semen in year 1, 2, or 3. I found the other day one of my blue queens from 2020, from the cutout that I did. She's still laying just fine. I have no reason to replace her whatsoever. Queens should not run out of vigor at the end of the first year. This is my opinion. There's a lot of this and that, and we could hem and haw over why. It's my opinion. Queens should last 2, 3, and 4 years. Michael Palmer's in Vermont. He keeps these meticulous records. He had a queen. He told me that he bred her in 2002. That hive was requeened in 2009. 7 years later, requeened again 6 years later in 2015. It is possible to breed a better bee. It depends on how well she was mated on the first mating flight. I don't like early matings. I am on purpose 2 weeks behind my competition in North Carolina, and here's why. My queens emerged this year on March 18th. It was cold until March 24th. By then, the virgins had had time to develop their wings and go out for a good mating flight. The problem is on the 24th, 25th, and 26th, the window of flight time, and of course it's weather appropriate, it's only about 3 hours. The drone population at that point is about 30% of what it is right now. So customers are demanding these earlier and earlier and earlier bees. We see them coming out of Georgia and Florida because they're weeks ahead. But the rumor mill is that they have these high supersedure rates. I don't want to put anybody down in Florida and Georgia. I'm just a big promoter of local stock. I'm not trying to sell you mine. I'm encouraging you to go do your own. If you'd like to buy from us, I'd love to have your business. But at the same time, it's more about education than it is. Remember, they'll sell you anything. I'm not here to sell you something. My name, it'd be different if it was like Winging It Farms with Ashby Miller. It's Ashby Farms. My name's literally on it, right? Like, I can't screw this up. So, I mean, put that in mind. So, with breeding a better local bee, you can select for traits. Gentle bees, good honey makers, how well they rebound and rebuild in the spring. It just really depends on what your goals are. But the point is if you get together, if you gather together, moving hives, that's easy. Move them at night, use a red headlamp on either a cold or rainy night. You don't need to close the entrances, they'll stay in. On warm nights, they'll come out crawling. But I prefer to move mine at night when it's cooler or raining, so they all stay in. And it's amazing how easy it is to move hives. It can seem daunting at first, but I run two-way pallets, which means there's 2 hives to a pallet, so it takes 2 of us to, and I only move them as a single because they're too heavy when they're a double. And last year, I made the unfortunate decision to move some doubles at night. So we had to disassemble them and reassemble them. I took like 60 stings one night. Like, that's not fun at that point. So I'm going to touch back to one more thing real quick, which is going into winter. We have a goldenrod flow. For us, it starts about September 10th.
See, and we've had it start as early as beginning of August.
But is it producing nectar in the heat?
It depends on how hot August is, but I've gone in like end of August with brand new bright orange honey, bright orange comb, fully capped. And I was like, where did you come from?
Sweet.
Yeah.
So this is a big advantage. And actually, I want to speak on this. Is just when I'm looking for my yards, we do that in the fall. I do it. Okay, goldenrod takes it requires a field to stand for about 5 or 6 years before the goldenrod will like take over the whole field. And so much land, granddad's dying, grandma's dying, and the family sells the farm, and now they go develop it, and now there's no more stands. Goldenrod's getting thinner and thinner. So I put my yards in proximity to where we saw fields of goldenrod last fall. That's my selection process for my locations. We can knock on doors and find people who are on board with, let's put some bees out there and trade for honey. There are plenty. It's just a matter of, and the reason I do this is the feed bill. So, two things. Goldenrod pollen, which is the last flow of the year, and red maple pollen, in my opinion, are the two best pollens of the year. And it's first and last for us. And we're fortunate here that we get that fall goldenrod flow. So it saves us money on having to pack on pollen patties in the fall. At a commercial scale, I still do it, but small hive beetles, you really got to watch how much small hive beetle load you have, because if they get into that pollen, they'll ruin your hive and it's done. So be careful with that. But the other thing is, a nice solid hive, if you fed it like I told you every 2 weeks, the forager numbers stay up, so that when goldenrod hits, they forage out, they bring the goldenrod back to the hive, and now they're putting on weight that you don't have to pay for in the form of sugar water, that you don't have to pay for with your time and labor. So that's why it's important to feed through dearth. And again, these are my opinions, this is how I do it. I also, let me talk real numbers too. So I want to see 90 pounds in a hive going into winter, and that last date for me is October 20th. They have to be completely done being fed by then. Well, if goldenrod doesn't start till September 1st, then we've got a month to October 1st. That only gives me 20 days to pack on the difference in the weight, which is difficult to do. So instead, I really start feeding mine about September 20th in addition to the goldenrod, so that we've got about 5 weeks to put on that weight. So nuke hives, like a 5-frame nuke, if you're gonna make your splits now, you should plan on probably doing a quart a week for 7 weeks. I say somewhere between 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons of feed. That's 2 to 1, so really thick syrup, okay? Singles, which is a 10-frame single. I run 10 frames so that I know the weights. So I would estimate you probably need 4 to 5 gallons. I err on the 5-gallon side because I don't want my bees to starve. So remember, last winter, these bees are laying brood. I mean, I'm seeing sheets of brood on December 1st.
See, and I think we pretty much die down to almost like, where is my queen in November? And then by Christmas, we're back to a impressively large amount of brood.
Yeah.
But November is like, where'd my queen go?
Right. So I mean,
it really is like very solstice.
So I'm just an hour away, and let me tell you where we were at Thanksgiving. I got 4 frames of brood. There's no need to treat with OA if you've got that much brood. So I'm looking for a 3-week cold snap, followed by the first warm night above 42 degrees. At 42 degrees is where the bees cluster. So that first night, I literally stay up the whole night. I'm bobbing around to all the beehives, treating with OA, because the cluster's broken. It's at night, all the bees are home, and they're broodless. So that's the time to treat with OA, whatever it works out for your schedule. But you need to be in your hives on a warm day, 50 degrees, check them out, open them up for less than a minute, pop the center open, look at how much brood you got, close it down. But back to winter feedings, I would encourage you to feed appropriately and feel the weight, pick up the hive to get an estimate about. So if they bring in, like my snow camp yards bring in a ton of goldenrod, we hardly had to feed them. I got 2 other yards that we just about fed all the way up because Hurricane Ian, I believe it was, came and it knocked down like all our goldenrod in that area, and that's beekeeping for you. I mean,
how long does goldenrod take to reestablish after a forest has been cleared? Do you have any idea?
It doesn't. It didn't come back. Like once it was done, it was done.
Well, no, I mean, like if a forest is cleared, we have a ton of water going on in Granville County right now. And I mean, blackberries are going to take 2 or 3 years to move in, right? Like how fast does goldenrod move in?
6 or 7. It needs to be a fallow pasture. Most times bush hogging a couple times will spread the seed around. It's hard to find like the guys who, we all know that guy who just has 20 acres and he just bush hogs it twice a year, just to keep it from like trees, scrub brush popping up. Those are the fields that really turn into good goldenrod. So, Well, I hope I've been helpful. I know I threw a lot of information at you, but I hope I've been able to offer some education. I tell people this: I've always had a servant's attitude. If you need help, call me. I don't always have the answers. A lot of times, because of how busy we are, I'll just send you a video. I'll say, hey, can I text you at this number? Yeah. I send Bob bedding videos all the time because
That's efficient.
It instead of me having to explain it, you can rewatch the video 10 times. To touch on one more thing. Oh, yes, sir.
Do you run 2 deeps normally?
Yes. Yeah. If I have a choice, 10 double deep. His question is, do we run double deeps? For honey, I run a single brood chamber. So what we do is we let them expand into a 10 frame double deep, and we make sure the queen's in the bottom box, and we shake all the bees down and put an excluder in. And as the brood above hatches, then the bees backfill the brood nest with honey. But then you've got.
But you're not currently running any mediums, right?
No, I don't. I run all deep equipment. Yeah.
We're back.
We have teenagers and a boom crane. So
Is that here in one of your videos? You got a boom truck?
I've got an F-350 and I've got a boom crane, and it needs to be
Where did
mounted.
you get it from?
Facebook Marketplace. Yeah. So
Can you talk for a minute about your wax dipping thing? Because a couple members had been contemplating, like, should we maybe as a club go in and purchase it as more of like a business opportunity to provide the service to the club members, to grow our club, because club members would get a dipping discount, and then to market it once a quarter, we have a dipping day and people can come pay to dip their stuff.
it is my opinion. I offered it as a service and got very little interest. And the few people that would commit didn't show except for one. It takes 5 hours. So I had a custom welded stainless steel tank. It measures 20 by 40 inches. It's about it's taller than that. It's about this tall. I'm trying to think of the math. It's 48 inches tall. I've got a bottom welded into it, 17 inches, and it's got a propane burner down low. I've got 2 or 3 videos online if you want to see it. It takes 600 pounds of wax to fill. This year's wax cost was $2.13 a pound on average, plus propane. It takes about 5 hours to melt it the first day. So I would easily say I've got $2,500 in the construction, plus another call it $1,500 to fill it. If painting is standard, wax dipping is premium. What you're doing is your magic number on the wax is about 235 to 240 degrees. You want to make sure you've got nice dry wood. So I have all my wood custom cut from Cody Redding in Prospect Hill. It's true 1 inch. It's not 7/8 or 3/4. This is very heavy equipment. All my equipment is probably double the weight. Just the boxes are double the weight of what most you have. Everybody who comes and works, they're like, man, it's heavy equipment. Well, I don't need bricks on top of any of my lids. They don't blow off. Everything's heavy. So you submerge it in the wax for about 7 minutes. My timer goes off. By the time I get the last one out, it's about 10 minutes. And what's happening is water boils off at 212, so it's steaming out of the pores of the wood. My wood, so we just have it's stickered wood, meaning it's got sticks between each layer, so it air dries for about 6 months, and we're still running a 12% moisture content in the wood when I'm wax dipping. So all the moisture steams out of the wood, and then when you pull it out of the tank, the wax sucks back into the vacuum created on a porous level. And now you have a UV proof, rot proof, waterproof box. So I only want to build boxes once. I build all mine from scratch. And I've got videos on how I build all my equipment if you want to see those. But basically, most of your painted stuff at the box joint is where the surface area is where it's going to rot. Not to mention hive tools breaking corners, smashing corners. It's not a problem right now, but in robbing season, that's a problem. So I'm building mine once, and I considered it building it right. So I would say you're looking at a $4,000 investment. You're probably looking, I would estimate, a 10 frame box. I'm just doing some rough math. You're probably looking at $3 a box in wax, plus what's it cost you? About, it's a tank a day of LP gas, which is I don't know, $20, right? I mean, and then your time to be there. It needs to be above 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the other problem is you spend all morning heating this block of wax, and now it's time to dip. So it's like you only have this window of opportunity, maybe from 12 o'clock to 5 or 6 p.m. to dip. So like my schedule is cleared, and all I do is roll. I mean, it's just, so what I do this year is I'm putting 4 in. I go inside and I build 2 boxes. I run back outside. By the time I pull them out, I put the next batch in. I go in and I build 2 more boxes. I come back out, and that's just my timing. It's so that I can watch from the window to make sure we're not having boil overs. There is an inherent risk. I joke and say safety third, but let's talk the realism here. You've got 600 pounds of liquid wax at 240 degrees. If you ever got boiling water on you, it's not funny. So safety glasses, a hat, the clothes you're wearing. I have wax dipping clothes. 500 degree rated silicone gloves for reaching in, and I wear a liner glove, and it will wear your back and shoulders out. The first time my dad ever helped me, he ended up having shoulder surgery later. My dad's 65, he's pushing 70 now, but still, you know, he likes to think he's 30. Hi, Dad, if you're watching. You know, but it'll wear your back and shoulder. So make sure, I stand on a nuke box. So the problem with a boil over is if it boils up and over the top, you got open flame down low. This is a giant candle. And think of it that way. So I've got a ABC rated and a AB rated fire extinguishers about 20 feet in either direction, a garden hose, and a piece of sheet metal, because my plan is to come in low and put the sheet metal up on it so that the flame just kind of rolls out around, and you can put that out with a fire extinguisher. There's no way you're going to put this thing out. I mean, and the bad thing is it's 6 feet from the rest of my wood. Do dumb things and win dumb prizes. But I've had 3 boil overs, and so far I've done 350 nuke boxes and 1,300 10 frame boxes and 220 pallets. It's pretty good, only 3 boil overs. But as soon as you see it happening, cut the flame off. Be very quick. So I mean, I want to tell people, like, if you're going to do this, there's an inherent risk that you're going to not just get burned, like you're going to end up in a burn unit. There's a safety issue. At the same time, if you're smart about it and you watch your temperatures and you really spend the time with your equipment, I feel very safe with mine because I've gone through all these screw ups. But to the person starting out, just inherently know that, like, there's a real risk. So if I could do it again, I would do it in my gravel driveway out away from everything, you know, just with safety in mind. But now let's talk about, I would build it out of stainless, which is what I did. Long term, if you've got people in the club who are, like, you gotta really assess. I can dip on average about 92. I can do 4 boxes at a time, and I did 92 a day for 3 days in a row. It was what I averaged. I did 288 in 3 days. But that's just hustling like that. I mean, that's just me wearing myself
way
out.
Longer than that to paint.
That's right. That's right. And the advantage is it gets in all the cracks. So does the club want to invest $4,000? Remember, like, and the other thing too is at the end of the day, I built mine where I refill it with wax at the end of the day, and I've got it wrapped with like 1.5 inch closed cell insulation and a lid for it too, so that overnight that wax dissolves and turns liquid. The next day, it only takes like 2 hours to get restarted. So I've found that instead of that first initial day, or if I want to get started early, I'll I'll waste LP gas for 5 hours the night before just to get the block started melting. And then you're talking about a block that's 31 inches deep, 40 inches by 20 inches. This is huge. and get somebody who with a lot of welds. So I happen to work in a pharmaceutical company. If you want the welder, I would get Daniel to do it again. I mean, if you want me to know a guy, I got a guy. He's fantastic. He's worked in pharmaceuticals as a welder for years.
So do you re-dip ever, or do you not have to?
You don't have to.
So one and done.
One and done. So right now we're on our 3rd year, and I see 0 rot. It does turn the equipment dark. Some people see that as a negative, like they're going to get hot in the summertime. Bees live in trees in the summertime, and houses in the summertime, and like.
You can wax dip and white paint also, but you gotta white paint it when you wax dip it. It's gotta be hot. After it sets up.
I mean, they've done studies with fire gear that's black versus beige, and like the difference in temperature is actually really negligible, and they decide it doesn't make a difference what color your gear is. So I would imagine it would apply the same to a color of a beehive.
I like that. I mean, and here's another advantage. So I leave equipment staged at all my yards. I've got, in early spring, we've got like 50 to 60. If you watch my videos, you'll see. I've got 50 to 60 nukes at every yard. I've got queen castles at every yard. I've got extra pallets, extra everything there, extra feeders. I mean, I don't want to get out there to a yard. I try to keep 40 hives to a yard. I don't want to get there. I drive an old F-150. It's like a 2000 model I got in high school. I've had it 20 years now. It's got 360,000 miles. We don't have the ability. This thing's not going to last forever. So the get up and go got up and went 200,000 miles ago. We take winter time to move the gear out. The advantage of the wax dip is I don't need to have a tarp over it. It can just sit out in the weather. It's not hurting anything. It does get full of ants. The other day I found a black snake. I got a YouTube short about that. That's fun. Pop a nuke open and there's a 4-foot black snake right there. Like, yeah. It was. It's probably we get mice set up in your hives, but.
So it's basically waterproof. It's weatherproof.
It's weatherproof, waterproof.
Forever.
I put down a black plastic landscape fabric, and then I put my pallets right on top of that. I don't have any rot. That's the number one problem with palletized beekeeping is even though you have like a pressure treated board, the ground rot. At some point, you got to say like concrete blocks are expensive and heavy.
So can you wax dip previously painted?
I don't know. I don't see why not. But
Can you wax dip pressure treated? Like if you make a bunch of stands with pressure treated wood, can you wax dip that?
I wouldn't wax dip pressure treated. So I've been pressure treated. Okay. Same concept. They pull a vacuum on it, and then it's basically like a creosote telephone pole. It's the same concept. It's impermeated all the way through with the wax.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions for Ashby? We're getting late.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep you guys.
That's okay. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. If you need anything or I can help, you got an idea, I mean, Thomas reach out, Christina's reach out, call me. I'll help you however I can. So.
I have an interesting thing for you, but.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys.